BBC Studios.
Just to let you know that this episode contains some strong language and deals with sexual abuse.
You'd think that they would shovel the walkways, right?
It's a cold day with half a foot of snow covering the base of the Rocky Mountains. The sun reflects off the snow, making everything brighter.
So you'll see my tracks going off the trail right here. That'll take you right to that moose track.
Lydia and her boyfriend Russ have brought me out here so I can see how they hunt for big game. We're surrounded by these mountains that are older than anything I can comprehend. It makes me remember how I'm just a small part of this world. Lydia points something out to me on the ground.
You can definitely see tracks down there. I bet that's moose down there.
As a hunter, looking at a map will only get you so far. At some point, you need to go to where you think your prey might be sheltering and seek them out.
Yeah, and you can see how they kind of do the drag because of the depth of the snow. You can always tell with the elk and the size of the elk by the distance of the dew claw on that rear side of the elk.
The tracks go into the opening of a clump of conifers.
I wouldn't stand out in the middle like this because all of those animals are going to see me. I'd always stay along the tree line and come up around and into the trees.
Lydia finds a good spot for us to survey from. And then, instead of following the elk she's been tracking, she uses a whistle to try to lure them to her.
He's right there. So look right through the trees, just right there. Can you see? Okay.
And look at his winter coat.
It's a fluffy boy.
Yeah. See where his shoulder is right there? That's where you're going to want to do that shot, is right around there, right behind their shoulder. Because one, it stops them, and two, it's right at the vitals. We have to be really, really quiet. I'm going to drop down on a knee just so I can position myself and get sturdy with my rifle. I'm lifting up my rifle, getting into my scope, getting it on my crosshairs, looking at the vitals. I want a broadside shot, calculating the distance, probably about 200 yards from here. The adrenaline, you get the shakes.
Lydia looks straight into the eyes of her prey and tries to mesmerize it. For her, this is a ceremonial process.
I'm in a constant meditative state. So I'm in like this state of constant prayer.
She prays to Yusin, the supreme god for Apaches. He's the creator of the universe, the mountains, Lydia, and the elk she's hunting.
And I'm asking Yusin to guide me on my hunt. Plug your ear. I'm going to take the shot.
From BBC Studios, this is The Hunter, with me, Anaya Echohawk. Episode 4, The Predator. It's the evening of Thursday, January 25th, 2018, and Lydia and her boyfriend Russ have just landed in Chihuahua. They've come to Mexico on a tip-off that Vanderwall is hiding out here. As Lydia walks down the jetway, she switches her phone back on.
As soon as I get off the plane, my phone is just message, Message, text, voicemail, all this stuff.
Before she got on the flight, she emailed FBI Special Agent Jones to tell him that she was taking matters into her own hands. She's going to try and find Vanderwall herself. The special agent has responded.
I'm listening to these messages, and I'm like, wow, here I have Special Agent Jones, Special Agent Perez, leaving me messages.
I know your desire to get this guy, but do not go to Cuauhtémoc. There is nothing positive you can accomplish, which is not already in the process of being accomplished.
Lydia, please don't go down there. Lydia, please,
There are very real risks associated with you going, though. My guys in Mexico are guests, so they have no jurisdiction and will not be able to provide assistance if something goes sideways should you decide to act independently.
We don't want him to see you and have him run again and, all these messages like, we're working on it, we're doing what we can.
You've done a great job of giving us information, so let's keep that going. But anything additional could potentially be harmful.
And, there was actually a moment where I considered, okay, I got the FBI asking me not to do this, and I really wanted to honor their wishes, but there was that part of me that I was like, no, they need to see that here he was, and they needed to get a move on it. I'm here. We're going to do this.
But how is she going to do this? Lydia doesn't have a plan, and she can't use the tools she normally does when hunting. She's come to Mexico unarmed.
I couldn't take a firearm into Mexico. I had considered taking a bow, but I was like, they're not going to allow me to bring any weapons into this country.
But she does have one weapon at her disposal: contacts. She knows people in Mexico who can help her, tribal brothers and sisters that she's met at Apache gatherings. Before she got on the flight, she'd sent a message to her tribal brother, Ivan Alexander de Leon, who lives in northern Mexico. Ivan's known Lydia for a few years.
She's a nice lady. She takes care of her family, and she like a good family person and a defender for rights,
Like Lydia, Ivan is Lipe an Apache. He's tall with broad shoulders and likes to wear his hair swept back in a headband with a feather in it.
She told me beforehand that she had this issue with this guy, Vanderwall, that this guy had done some bad things to her son.
For Ivan, being Lipe an Apache means you support other members of the community. So when Ivan gets a message from Lydia saying she's heading to Mexico,
I immediately considered helping her.
So Ivan dropped everything and had gotten on a bus for a 10-hour ride from his hometown to meet Lydia in Chihuahua. Together, they'll come up with a plan. In Chihuahua, Lydia and Russ pick up a rental car and head over to their hotel to meet Ivan.
I arrive at the hotel lobby with some friends.
And he shows up, and he has one of the Chiricahua Apaches with him. And I get them a room and everything. And we're sitting in the hotel lobby area, and we actually move over to like the bar restaurant, and we're talking and we're planning everything out.
How are they going to find out if the man they've been tipped off about is actually Vanderwall? And if it is Vanderwall, what should they do when they find him? The four of them, Lydia, Russ, Ivan, and his friends, sit around a table in the hotel bar and go through their options. Ivan's not worried. He thinks that between them, they have 3 Apaches. It will be easy to find Vanderwall.
We are a hunting society. We've been hunters since hundreds of years. What defines us is our courage and strength to survive and to be resilient and able to stand any kind of trouble to reach that goal of finding something, some animal or some person.
But what to do with Vanderwall if they find him? Ivan advises that they can't just go up to a police officer and tell them to arrest Vanderwall. There's no guarantee that law enforcement would help them.
The police, they are bribed really easily, and also the police are criminals. So, I mean, yeah, they have 2 jobs. They work for the the mafia and they work for the police.
But Lydia does, just about, trust the American police. Between the four of them, could they tie him up, bundle Vanderwall into their car, drive him to the border, and hand him over to the U.S. authorities? But they have a problem. If they were in the U.S., a licensed bounty hunter could round him up and bring him to the authorities. But this practice is illegal in Mexico. And it wouldn't be easy to smuggle him from Chihuahua to the U.S. border. It's a 5-hour drive, and they're likely to be stopped on the way.
There's potential for the military checkpoints. There's potential for law enforcement checkpoints. They have checkpoints everywhere.
If they get stopped at the checkpoint with a guy tied up on their back seat, then they would all be arrested. And Lydia really doesn't want to be put in prison, away from her kids. But then she has a thought. She has another tribal brother who has lots of contacts in Mexico.
He told me that he was a child of the streets. He had grown up on the streets and, the prostitutes, the drug dealers, the street people. Those were his people. And somehow he ended up going to university and getting educated and creating a really good life for himself, but he still had those connections.
The kind of connections that can help you navigate police checkpoints and smuggle someone to the border. So from the hotel bar, Lydia calls up this tribal brother. She puts him on speakerphone so everyone can hear.
And I specifically asked him, if I need help getting over the border, will you get us over the border? And he's like, I will. I'll help you. And so I had full confidence in him because he was constantly coming and going over the border, just all the time. And so, yes, he was my contact to be the one to make it happen.
Lydia hangs up the phone. Okay, so kidnapping Vanderwall could be an option. She looks around the table.
I'm there to protect, be the voice of reason.
Her boyfriend, Russ, isn't impressed with this plan.
I'm the guy that, no, we're not going to zip tie him and throw him in the back of the trunk and do anything with him. I mean, I would be the guy that was erring to the side of caution.
Is there anything else they can do? Lydia refills their glasses while she racks her brain. Through her Apache contacts, she knows someone who knows the president of this area, the equivalent of the local mayor. She wonders if she could pay him to have Vanderwall arrested. Lydia looks down to a bag she has stashed under the table. Inside is $20,000 US.
Because I thought, if I have to bribe someone, if I need bail money, whatever I might need to use it for. And I remember we're sitting there at this table, and I said, what do you think it's going to be to bribe the president of Cuauhtemoc to get law enforcement to make the arrest? And I go, what do you think, like $5,000?
Ivan's friend turns to Lydia. He's been pretty quiet throughout the discussions, but now he looks her in the eye.
And he says, oh, shit, with $5,000 he'd be buried and never found again. And I'm like, wow, that inexpensively, huh?
Just $5,000 to have Vanderwall killed and never asked about again. He would be completely removed from her life, her son's life, and the lives of all other kids.
I absolutely contemplated it like, wow, it only cost me $5,000. I can do that. You never see or hear of him again.
It's a tempting offer, but this time it's Ivan that looks to Lydia.
And he says, Lydia, you don't want that on your hands. And I said, you're correct. I said, death would be too easy. Because I want this man to wake up every morning for the rest of his life and look in that mirror and know that the world knows he's a pedophile. So death was definitely way too easy.
So they've ruled out murder and kidnap, but they still don't have a plan. So Lydia turns to what she knows best, hunting. Just like she'd call an elk to her when she's out on a hunt, she decides to try to lure this man to them. She'll set a trap, and as soon as she gets eyes on her prey, she'll know if they've got the right man. Lydia's been messaging the tipster for weeks now, jotting down useful intel. The man they think is Vanderwall is driving around town in an old vehicle. There's a sign in the window saying it's available for sale with a phone number. Maybe she could contact this man and pretend to be interested in buying it, and see if they can get him to agree to meet with them. From Mexico, Lydia messages the tipster asking for a description of the vehicle. The tipster provides the information so that they can pretend they just seen it around town. Ivan calls the person they think is Vanderwall, and they arrange a time and place to meet so that Ivan can supposedly check out the vehicle, while really checking out the man.
We just wanted to get him into a public location to where we could visually see him and get images.
But they also want a location that if things go wrong, they'd be able to move to their backup plan.
If I had to kidnap him, that was something that I had considered. So we wanted him in a place that he would be easily accessible and wouldn't have a whole lot of place to go.
Ivan arranges to meet the guy tomorrow in a grocery store parking lot. The trap is set. Just like the elk in the mountains, they've called Vanderwall to them. That is, if it is Vanderwall. Lydia has come all this way on a tip-off from someone who could have got it wrong. Or worse, someone playing games with her. The next morning, Lydia, Russ, and Ivan head 2 hours west to Guatemala, the city that Vanderwall is supposedly hiding in. And driving into the city, Lydia has the most bizarre experience.
I'm seeing the high wall, the red roof. I'm seeing all the signs.
She's instantly transported back to a few months earlier, to a conversation with her friend Janita.
I saw a barbed wire fence, and I knew the other side of that fence was Mexico.
Janita Kennedy works in the media. She's a mom of 4 kids, an entrepreneur, and a Navajo hand trembler. Navajo, or the Dene, are a neighbor tribe to the Apaches in the Southwest.
I have medicine people on both sides of my mom and dad, so that runs deep. Some were hand tremblers, some were medicine men. You help people, answering the call, but we hold it as a gift.
The hand trembler's gift is that they can diagnose ailments, treating them with Navajo medicine and prayer.
It helps a person where they're unbalanced. And in Lydia's situation, it was her emotional state, mental state, spiritual state that was imbalanced.
And hand tremblers can sense things that other people can't. Lydia had connected with Janita at Standing Rock, the monumental encampment that brought tribes together to protest about the Dakota Access Oil Pipeline. And Janita had stayed in touch over social media.
I'm seeing Lydia's posts on Facebook about what happened to her son, and I can relate a lot to that because, everything that has to do with sexual abuse, molestation, everything I went through myself. And so that really tugged at my heart, and I understood. And I decided to call her and say, Lydia, my gift came out and I would like to help you.
And she asked me if I would be willing to accept her help in locating Vanderwall, and I said, absolutely.
At her house in North Dakota, Janita prepares herself. She sits on her floor, listens to music, and burns some embers.
I closed my eyes and I started hearing the music, and sure enough, my hands started to shake and tremble. I started, tuning into her and the situation and everything, started channeling or getting in touch with what she needed to know.
Janita says that as she tunes into her gift, she starts seeing things in her mind's eye.
I was in a bird's eye view, and I saw a road, and I started seeing rest areas, and I saw a barbed wire fence, and I knew the other side of that fence was Mexico, but before we could go through it, it turned me around and we shot back up towards Canada. And then I saw MB and I was like, oh, is this Manitoba?
Janita said she saw the initials MB, which are the initials of the province of Manitoba in Canada. Next, she sees a figure that could be Vanderwall in a white vehicle near a red roof.
I felt like I was sitting in the car with him, and I looked at him, and then after that, it showed me a fox and then an underground tunnel. And so for me, I kind of interpret that as he's just hiding underground. He's under the radar. He's, fox-like.
After the trance-like state has finished, Janita calls Lydia to tell her what she saw.
And I remember I'm writing everything down. I'm writing the red roof and the white truck and the high fence. And then the letters, MB. And she's telling me all these details, and I'm writing everything down.
Lydia tried to do some online research to make sense of the visions. When she first received this information, she thought that Vanderwall must be up in Manitoba, in Canada. But now, as she's driving into Guatemala, everything is falling into place.
I'm seeing the high wall, the red roof, all of these connections that had been made by the hand trembler. And I'm overwhelmed with that feeling of, oh my gosh, she was right. Here it is. And all of a sudden, Manitoba in huge letters.
They pass a sign that reads, Manitoba, Colony of Mennonite Christians in Guatemala. Lydia knows Vanderwall grew up as a Mennonite, so maybe Janita's vision wasn't about Manitoba in Canada, but was leading her to the Manitoba Mennonites right here in Mexico.
And I saw that sign. I just started sobbing. And I said to my boyfriend, I was like, oh my gosh, look, there it is, Manitoba. She was right. It's right here. And I'm shaking and I'm crying, but I knew we were on the right track, that this was it.
Russ, Ivan, and Lydia park their rental car. They still have a couple of hours to kill until the time they've arranged to meet the man who could be Vanderwall. They head to a restaurant complex and get some soda pop and something to eat. The three of them grab a table, and then another group comes in and takes the seats next to them.
I'm sitting in this restaurant booth, and right next to us is a table of the federales,
the Mexican law enforcement.
And it was just kind of a weird feeling like, hey, we know there's a pedophile we could go catch like right now. You guys on board with doing something like that this afternoon?
But Russ doesn't trust the cops down here.
I mean, it's a whole different world. Who are they employed by, really? Or who's bankrolling those guys? So you're out of your element. We're a couple people that don't belong there, and we're on our own.
Over a tense lunch, they go over the plan one last time. They'll drive to the parking lot where they've arranged to meet this man. Ivan, who Vanderwall doesn't know, will take a look at his vehicle. Lydia and Russ, who Vanderwall would recognize, will hide in the back of the car and take photos of him. They pay their check, take one last glance at the federales, and head to their car. It's time. On the way to the meeting spot, Lydia starts to worry that Vanderwall might be heading over at the same time and will recognize Lydia through the car window.
It's a rental car. They don't have tinted windows. There's no way that I can really hide my identity.
But at least with her brown colorings, she blends in. However, her blue-eyed boyfriend Russ sticks out like a sore thumb.
I remember Lydia yelling at me because I was peeking up too much out of the window. She thought, we were going to blow her cover. I'm like, he doesn't have a freaking clue we're down there. Lydia, I do this for freaking living. I sneak around and hide behind stuff and whatever. And, anyway, emotions are way the heck up here.
They make it to the parking lot and pull into an empty bay near the exit so they can make a quick getaway if things go wrong. Ivan gets out and leans against the vehicle. Lydia crouches down inside.
I immediately tried to hide myself because I didn't want him to see me, and I got down on the back seat floorboard.
Lydia's head is almost touching the floor of the car. She can smell that plastic tang of the overcleaned rental. She'd much rather be up in the Rocky Mountains, breathing fresh air and crouching behind a tree for cover. She hears a vehicle pulling into a space across from them. A door opens. Someone gets out. She lifts her head slowly, and she sees a man wearing a long-sleeved t-shirt and a black baseball hat. Medium height, slightly overweight. He turns towards her, and she catches a glimpse of his face. Lydia has no doubt. It's Vanderwall.
And I was so angry. And I thought, what an arrogant bastard to just be parading around with no consequence. And there were just so many different emotions. I was so angry, and I just dropped my head into my hands and I just started sobbing. I was crying. I was so upset.
She manages to compose herself. Finally, she has her prey in her sights. She takes aim and snaps a few photos of Vanderwall.
And as I'm getting pictures, I'm sending them to Agent Jones just in real time. And I get the street signs so that they know exactly which location he's at. You see it all. I have the evidence and I'm handing it to them on a silver platter. Here it is. And I'm just sobbing. And I'm sobbing because I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm relieved. Like, here he is. I found this motherfucker and he's going down. And I'm thinking, I fucking did it. I did it. And he's getting busted, and this is going to happen because I know where he's at.
Russ is trying to keep to his role of Mr. Sensible, but every inch of his body wants to take action.
You just like to get over there and give him a little ass whooping and hog time, throw him in the trunk and take him to the authorities. I mean, that ain't going to happen. That's not practical, right?
But then, Lydia sees something that changes everything.
I see that there are children with him.
There are two boys sitting on the trunk of Vanderwall's vehicle. They're hanging their legs over the back bumper, idly kicking them up and down.
And I'm just shaking, and I'm so angry. And there's part of me that just wants to fly out of that vehicle and wrap my hands around his neck and grab that bastard and fucking kill him.
But before Lydia can wrench open the car door, Vanderwall gets back in his vehicle. The meeting is over. He's driving off.
And he has the children with him.
Without thinking, Lydia jumps over into the front seat, gets behind the wheel, and puts her foot on the gas. She's going to follow Vanderwall. This was episode 4 of The Hunter. The presenter is me, Anaya Echohawk. The producer is Emma Wetherill. Sound design by Melvin Rickaby. Production management by Juliet Harvey. And the executive producer is Joe Kent. You can contact the team on thehunter@bbc.com. If you've been affected by any of the issues raised in this podcast, details of organizations that can help are available in the episode description. The Hunter is funded and made by BBC Studios, a commercial company that is wholly owned by the BBC.